Now that you've made the decision to only eat food that is healthy, that is not bioengineered, doesn't have bugs in it, and is not fake food, how do you store this precious food that you were able to find? Today, we are going to talk about all the different ways to store food. Good morning, everybody. This is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and today we're going to talk about long-term storage of the foods that you need to feed your families. The first thing I do when I bring everything home is I divide it into how I'm going to preserve it. And I've done that real quickly here. And we're going to go over the different ways I preserve food. These 4 items right here are all ready to store. I don't need to do anything to prepare them. I've got some pasta sauce, peanut butter, garlic powder, and some olives. All of them are canned or they are stored and sealed. So all I'm going to do, put them in my pantry. The next set of items are ones that I store in my freezer. The first is milk. 50% of the milk that I buy goes directly into my freezer. I don't do anything special. I don't pour it into another container. I put the carton directly in the freezer. Same goes for my butter. Now, right now, I intend to use this butter within the year. After a year, any butter that's left, I can. So I don't package this any different. I put the entire box right into my freezer. And surprisingly, I have found it pretty difficult to vacuum seal spaghetti because it's so long. And so instead of vacuum sealing it like I do all other pasta, I freeze it. To freeze my spaghetti, my linguine, my angel hair, I use these special boxes that I bought. It is a latch box. That means that you can latch it shut. And I have found that these containers fit perfectly in here. So I take them, I just stack them inside the box, put the lid on, and freeze the entire container. And you just snap them shut. The third type of packaging that you may encounter is something like this. All of these are pre-packaged. Whether they're fruit snacks or this little granola, they're already pre-packaged. Typically, I will leave them in that container and not vacuum seal it. If I'm concerned that maybe the expiration date's coming quickly, I can put those in my freezer. And that leads me to the rest of the items that I purchased, and these items all get vacuum sealed. Yes, even the grapes. The most important thing you're going to need to vacuum seal is a vacuum sealer. Now, I stick with 2 main ones at this point. This is by far my favorite. This is the Food Saver one with the attachment. You have to have this port in order to vacuum seal jars. The other one that I like is also Food Saver, but this is handheld. I keep this one plugged in and charged in my kitchen. I probably use this one just as much as my big one. But if I have been shopping and I have lots of food that I need to process and vacuum seal, I'm going to pull out my big old Food Saver. Other things you need are some flats. Now notice this one has writing on. That's because it's a used one. You can reuse the flats that you use for vacuum sealing. So I can use this lid over and over again. You're going to need some rings. The adapters that go onto my Food Saver. And of course, I like my big funnel so that I don't spill everything all over the place. And lastly, you need an assortment of canning jars. And these are pint. I also use quart, but the one I use the most is half gallon. I am going to start with one of the absolute easiest, and that is rice. I'm going to pour my rice into a half gallon size canning jar and try to fill it up as much as I can. I am often asked about the benefits of vacuum sealing over using Mylar bags and buckets, and let me tell you the reasons. First off, I need to see what I have. Unfortunately for me, if I don't see it, I don't remember I have it. The most organized person in the world cannot remember all they have. You need to keep an inventory. But when I line my walls with my jars, I can look up and say, oh, I'm running low on rice. The reason I prefer to vacuum seal in jars is that I know that they are rodent and insect proof. Mylar bags can be chewed on by rodents and will be. Often you will have something get in there and you don't know it because of little holes in the bag. But with my jar, I can be assured that nothing is getting in that jar. The jar looks like it's filled, and many people leave it at that. But I found if you shake it around and you pound it, you're going to get this rice to settle on down. That's what I'm talking about. I shook this around, thumped it on my counter, and it now goes down to the middle of my finger. So I have gained a lot more space. I can add more rice. When I look at the best by date, that's what BB, that's not an expiration, but a best by date, it says 2024, July 20th. So I know that I can label this jar 2025. I can add at least a year. Though many of my subscribers have said they have gone for 10 years. I haven't gone that far. We end up eating ours way before that. Like canning, you don't need to leave a 1/2 inch or an inch headspace. Mine is just barely down, maybe a 1/4 inch. And I did mark a new lid with Best By 725. Now, to vacuum seal, you're going to make sure all the dust is off of the rim. You're going to put the lid on. This is a wide mouth. And then I am going to use my wide mouth adapter. Your Food Saver does not come with the adapters. This is a different purchase. It was less than $10. This is a jar sealer. So this goes completely on top until it's solid on there. Like that. Plug it in by pushing this into the top of that jar sealer, and I turn on my Food Saver. We are going to use accessory, and you're going to push the button, which can be kind of loud, but when it's finished, it will shut off. And like that, it shut off on its own. What you're doing is you are sucking out all the air that is in there. So when people ask me, do you need an oxygen absorber? No, you don't, because the oxygen has been removed. Next, I pop off the lid and listen for the sound. There, and I could hear that it popped, which tells me it's most likely sealed. The last thing I do is take off the jar sealer and I check the seal. You're going to push on the center, you're going to pull up on the rim. It is not going to come off because that jar is sealed. Then you take a ring and you put it on it. Your jar in a dark, cool place, and it's going to last for at least another year or two, most likely up to 5 and even 10. That is the basis of how to vacuum seal. Now, different products do have different methods. Most items are sealed just like the rice, but let's move on to another one. Remember how I said I was going to vacuum seal my grapes? That is correct. You can vacuum seal your grapes. It will extend how long they last. Here's the punchline. Do not store them on your shelf. They do not become shelf stable. Instead, you're going to vacuum seal them. Put them in your refrigerator and it will extend the date. When doing grapes, the very first thing I did was remove any that were spotted or soft. Do not wash them. Then you're going to put them into your jar. If they don't fit, break them into smaller groups. You can remove them from the stem if you don't have a lot of space, but all of mine fit in there, so I did not take most of them off of the stem. I'm going to use that earlier lid I had that was already written on. And same process. You put the flat on, and you put on the jar sealer itself. Then when it's tight, plug it on in and turn on the sealer. Make sure that's in there. All right. I heard that one clink right towards the end, so I know this one's sealed. Then remove it and take the lid off. Verify that it is sealed, which it is. Put on a ring. And extremely important, put it in your refrigerator. Now, this is when I tend to use my little sealer more often because I'll open this jar of grapes, take out some for my lunch, and then reseal it with my little one. I don't need to take out the big machine to do it. Now, if I haven't mentioned it, you're going to want to use jars that have been fully washed and dried. This is especially important because I am moving on to flour. Do not put flour in a damp or wet jar. Flour is one of those items that takes an extra step, and we're going to go over that step. What you need is a pen and a paper towel, and I will show you exactly what we do. I had filled up this jar with flour, and then I thumped it on my counter, and this is one of those items that will go down a lot. So I am now going to fill it up again. All right, my jar is ready to seal, but I have an extra step, and what I'm going to do is take my wide mouth funnel, turn it upside down, onto that paper towel. Now the paper towel I folded in half, and now I'm going to take a pen and trace a circle around the funnel. Trace the lid, and now with my scissors I'm going to cut out 2 of these circles. Right now I only need 1. Look at the edge of the top of my jar. You're going to see it's covered in flour. So I am going to do another step, and that is to wipe all of that powder off of the top. Now I'm going to take one of those circles of paper towel. You can use a cupcake liner, you can use a coffee filter, but this is easy and cheap, so that's what I tend to use. You're going to put it on top of your jar and push it down around the flour. Just like that. And then you're going to put the lid on top of that. And that's what it looks like. What it's doing is holding the flour in there so it doesn't come out and go into your vacuum sealer. You do not want to do that. It will burn out your vacuum sealer very quickly. Other than that, you're just going to set it up and you are going to vacuum seal it just like you did the other ones. At this point, I always write on the lid that this is organic flour because often when you have powdered white items, it's hard to tell them apart. So I am going to write on the lid what it is and when is the best buy date. The best buy date was May 2024, so I wrote down May 2025. Next is coffee. Since I got two different kinds, I have dark roast and I have medium, I am going to only do one at a time. These are both ground coffee beans. Now, if you're looking for long-term storage, you definitely want to use whole beans. That way they will not get rancid like ground coffee can, but we will be using this within the next few months, so I'm not too concerned, and it's easier to use ground. This says on the package it expires in August 2024, so I put August 2025 best buy date. And because we're dealing with yet another powder, I am going to use a filter, which is a paper towel to hold it from being sucked into the vacuum sealer. This is a regular mouth lid, so it's going to use the smaller of the two attachments. So this time I'm using the small one. Other than that, you're going to seal it exactly the same way. That had a good seal on it. I could hear it. Next, I'm going to show you how to do pre-packaged items. This has a seasoning pack in it, so we're going to have to do things a little bit different, but it is not difficult. I poured the pasta, which are shells, into my pint jar, and then I cut off the front of the label of the box and the directions. Don't forget those directions. And I'm going to slip those into the jar around the outside so you can see it. The next step is pretty important. I want to poke one little hole into that seasoning mix so that when I vacuum seal the jar, I'm also taking the air out of the packet. So I have poked a hole with my paper punch right there, and now I'm going to carefully fold it in half and put it into the top of my jar. It should look like this. There is the package front and then the directions, and I have my pasta, and then on top is my packet mix. So I'm just going to seal it like the others. Bunny grams, I just pour into a jar. I don't need a barrier between it, so I'm just going to easily vacuum seal them. And I saved my favorite for last. What I like to do more than any other food is vacuum sealing cereal. I create my own mixture of organic cereals, and the reason I do that is this is my favorite, but it is expensive if you're looking at the price per ounce. So I can mix in some other fillers, which makes more of it for a lower price. And that's truly why I mix my cereals. I have stirred 6 boxes of cereal together, and now I'm going to fill up my half-gallon jars and vacuum seal them. And there you have it. Today we went over how to seal and save and preserve and store your favorite foods that are healthy. And so we went from storing them in small containers to freezing them to putting them in the pantry, and then the most time-consuming but well worth it is to vacuum seal. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.